I thought I might share with you all an anecdote or a humorous story that was developed by the Canadian populist and social organizer Tommy Douglas. Now, if there's any Canadians watching, they'll know who Tommy Douglas was. Tommy Douglas was the father of Canada's national healthcare system. He was a founder of the National Democratic Party of Canada. He was a populist, a progressive, not a Marxist, not a communist, but a progressive, a social democrat. And he would go around Canada speaking to labor unions, farmers associations, and he told this anecdote, which I think people might appreciate. This little story, I should say, not really an anecdote. It was kind of an allegory or a fable called Cats in Mousland. He used to say that once upon a time, there was a far-off land where almost everyone was a mouse, right? There were men mouse, women mice, there were mice who drove cars, there were mice schools, there were mice hospitals, mice factories, mice farms. Everyone in Mouseland, except for a few, was a mouse. But Mouseland was ruled by cats. And every year, they would have an election in Mouseland to determine which cat got to rule Mouseland. And the people, or the mice of Mouseland, were being told that this was democracy. Because every year they got to go to the polls and they got to vote for which cat got to rule over them. And it was a problem because, as you know, cats eat mice. And a lot of times the laws were written in ways to enable the cats to eat mice. They would have rules about how big the holes were that these little mice could crawl into. They would have rules about how fast the mice could run away when being chased by a cat. And so they would have an election. And many of the mice who were upset, they would say, you know what? We are tired of this administration. We have had a black cat running the country for years. Things just get worse. We keep getting eaten. So this year, we're going to vote for a white cat. And so they voted out the black cat, and they voted in a white cat. And they would have debates in these upcoming elections. And the white cats would say, well, we think the mice should hide in holes that are square. And the black cats would say, no, we think that the mice should hide in squares that are round. And every year, the mice were told that it was a democracy because they got to go to the polls and vote for which cat got to rule over them and which cat got to make the laws that resulted in them being eaten. But according to Tommy Douglas, as he told this lovely anecdote, once upon a time, there was a little mouse who had the brilliant idea to come forward and say, wait a second, maybe the problem in Mouseland, maybe the problem isn't that we have a white cat or a black cat. Maybe the problem isn't that our mouse holes are round instead of square or square instead of round. Maybe the problem is that this is a country made up of mice, but yet we have a government of cats. And perhaps if we wanted to be really democratic and really enact the popular will, we should have a government made up of mice that would serve the mice of Mouseland. So immediately, this little mouse was put in jail because he was a Bolshevik agitator. He was a communist. The end. I like the story. I think it's a beautiful story. I think Tommy Douglas, and it's little anecdotes like that made the socialist movement great. When I first got involved with one of the leftist groups I was involved with, there was an older woman who had grown up. She'd been a child in the 1930s, and she had many of these little witticisms, many of these little allegories for explaining socialist ideas, and it was kind of the beauty. That was the beauty of socialism. It wasn't, 1,000-page books on surplus value. It was this kind of popular wisdom that working people are being exploited. The banks, factories, and industries ought to operate for serving the people, not serving the rich. It was kind of beautiful.